Hi, today I'm going to show you the Fujifilm X-Pro1. This is a retail set that I bought yesterday. In this video I'm going to compare it with other cameras just to give you a sense of its size. On the right we have the Canon 7D with a 50mm lens. It weighs 950 grams, that is quite heavy. Let me put on the 50mm for the X-Pro1 as well. Now with the 50mm on, the X-Pro1 weighs about 637 grams. That is borderline heavy for me. A lot of people have commented about how light the X-Pro1 is and how cheap it feels. I do not feel the same way. In fact, I wish it was much lighter. Much lighter. Now the construction of the X-Pro1 is very sturdy. This whole thing is made of metal, it's hard metal. Let's take a look at the GF1 on the right side with its 25mm lens. The GF1 is much smaller and much lighter, weighing about 485 grams compared again to 637 grams. Now on the right side we have the X100, which I love and hate very much. Now the X-Pro1 is slightly larger than the X100. Without the lens, both cameras would weigh about the same. But with the lens on, the X-Pro1 feels much heavier. I only bought two lenses for the camera. That's the 80mm. Let's compare it with the Panasonic 14mm Micro Four Thirds lens. Both lenses are actually quite small. With the lens you buy from Fujifilm, they will give you the lens hood together with the lens hood cap. Let's compare the camera with the X100 now in terms of handling and features. On the front, the viewfinder switch has changed a bit. Instead of toggling up, you now toggle the bottom. The focus mode switch has now moved to the front of the X-Pro1. With the hand grip and the focus switch on the front right now, it could be quite difficult to make a camera case for it. On the top, you can see the horseshoe mount is now moved on top of the lens. Below that we have the shutter dial, the power button and the exposure dial. There's now an inbuilt lock when you push the shutter dial to aperture mode, the A there, the little red A there. So you can press the button to release the lock and you can turn it clockwise and anti-clockwise. Now to lock it back, you just turn it back to A. The exposure dial on the X-Pro1 now is much tighter. Let's take a look at the back of the cameras now. The buttons have been moved around a bit. Now the buttons are all over the place, not in a good way. You have the view mode at the top, the control dial, the review button, and at the thumb grip there you have the quick menu button. I have a very small thumb, and when I hold the camera like that, there is a tendency for me to hit the quick menu button accidentally. So not very good. The camera doesn't come with any diopter adjustment, so you have to buy your own. Now let's take a look at the battery. The X-Pro1 uses a new battery that's different from the X100. This is the MP-W136 battery. Now it's totally rectangular now, so be sure not to slot it in the wrong way. Crap, it's quite hard to actually put it in. Okay, it's in. Behind the camera is the SD card slot. This camera can write as fast as your card can write, so get a very fast card. One good improvement on the X-Pro1 is the startup time. It now powers up very quickly. It's not instant, but it's very quick. Let's compare it to the X100. To give the X100 an advantage, I will switch it on first, followed by the X-Pro1. That is the default startup time for the X-Pro1 without the quick start mode. The autofocus speed of the X-Pro1 is actually slower than the X100 when you're shooting with the optical viewfinder. In this video, I won't be able to give you an accurate idea of how the speed is because you won't actually know when I press the shutter. I must say that for both lenses, the 18mm and the 35mm, they are both slower in optical viewfinder mode. If you switch to the electronic viewfinder, the autofocus speed is similar to the X100, and this speed is actually slightly faster than a GF1 with its 20mm lens. What I'm showing you now is how the aperture blades are moving as the exposure in the surrounding changes. As the aperture is changing, you can actually hear little click 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 sounds. Another good improvement on the X-Pro1 is the menu system. When you go into the menu now, you can see 8 tabs on the left. You no longer have to scroll excessively to find your menu items. Also access and change your shooting settings using the quick menu button near the thumb grip. I'm actually not sure about how they implement the optical viewfinder. With the 18mm, you get the frame lines which covers about 80% of the scene, so you will always be getting more than what you see. With the 50mm, the frame lengths are actually quite accurate. That's all. I hope you find this video helpful in some ways. Thank you for watching.